Welcome to Success Superstars, episode number 66 with my special guest, Brigitta Brigitta, where are you from? I forget.
I'm from Germany.
From Germany?
Yeah.
I on my mother's side goes back to Switzerland. My father's side goes back to Sweden, but Germany is such an amazing country, one of the powerhouses of Europe, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. If it weren't for Germany, the whole EU, well, that's a whole political conversation we could have and dive deep into that rabbit hole, but we're not going to go there right now.
We won't go there. But the purpose.
But all the great cars are from Germany.
No, there you go. The Japanese might disagree with that, and of course, Detroit may not agree.
That's okay.
With it. The reason I wanted to have you on to Success Superstars is to share with the audience, your expertise not only in bank code, which is a preferred partner of ours here at JPAR, but also you're an expert in what I would call success patterns, the language of influence. Some people call that NLP. But give us a little bit about your background and how you got to where you are today.
Oh, yeah. Oh, my goodness. Where do I start? Well, first of all, thanks, Mark, for having me on. I really appreciate it. And I love the power topic of this call and of this show. So where do I come from? I come from Germany. I was born and raised in Germany to a high action dad and a very blueprint mother. And those are my two high codes, action and blueprint.
Explain what that is. Explain what action and blueprint is real quick.
Okay, so action is the ready, fire, aim, loving fun and freedom kind of personality. We're just going to go and do it, right? The blueprint actually has to have all the structure and the strategies and the processes in place. If you want to look at Germany as a code, Germans are very blueprint, just in their way of thinking, and that's why, again, we have such great cars.
Because we just process, system, structure.
Exactly. We go by the book, right? So processes, predictability, credentials, that's definitely blueprint, and the action is fun, freedom, fulfillment, ready, fire, aim kind of gal, okay? So, I, when I was little, I was 6 years old. I said, I'm going to be an entrepreneur. And I got all of the neighborhood round up and I said, let's sell all of our toys that we no longer use and sell them and give to bread for the world. That might be called differently here.
Right, a charity.
Yeah, charity. So my nurture is also very high. Nurturing being, harmony, loving, contribution, ethics, harmony, all of that, teamwork. And I did that very successfully. We donated a lot of money. Again, I was 6 years old. And I remember asking my mother when I was 17, if I learn a trade now, do I have to do that for the rest of my life? Because my action was screaming, going, I can't do that. I can't choose something now and do that for the rest of my life. And she says, no, you don't have to choose right now. And I didn't. I did one thing for 5 years, went to school, have an education degree, a social pedagogy degree, went back to school, got a marketing degree. And as I was 30, I grabbed our little daughter who was 18 months at the time. And I'm giving you a high level overview here. Yeah. And my husband that I just married, and I said, we're going to the States. Sounds all very simple. Wasn't really simple, but we did, to build a Montessori school because my background is in education and I love methodologies. We built a Montessori school in a small town in Tennessee. That school still exists, very successful today. I'm out of the day-to-day operations. And because I'm a firm believer of learning and being a continuous learner, because if you don't learn, you die, I learned more methodologies as I was building my business, just from my own development to grow my business, but also for the development of my staff, for the development of my own children, of the children of my school. And that's where I also started coaching parents, because I realized, oh my gosh, Mark, children are innocent by nature. They're okay until one adult or a few adults come around and screw them up. Right? And I thought, well, wait a minute, if we're doing all the work here in school, what happens at home? And that's when I started my work with parents. And that's when, around the same time, when I became a lead coach for the largest self-development company in the world, when I became a trainer for neurolinguistic programming, the language of impact. And that's also around the same time when I'm at Cherry Tree, who's the founder and CEO of the Bank Code methodology. So I got all these methodologies under one hat because they're all education, and they all give you two things in your communication, and that's flexibility and choice. The person, and this is an NLP law, and there are many laws within the NLP methodology, the person with the most flexibility controls the situation. And knowing that and having the influence, and when I say influence, I mean it in a positive way, okay? Anything that we do and have can be used negative or positive. Because I'm also a very high nurturer, I always come from a place of service and come from a place of win-win-win situations. So I learned to adapt all of that for my staff, for my kids, for my own growth, for the parents. And I've grown a large educational facility here in Atlanta just by doing that, by implementing all of those methodologies.
Yeah. So you've been an entrepreneur since the age of 6 and have learned all kinds of things to build a number of successful businesses.
Yes.
Now, one thing I'd like to digress for a minute. You mentioned that the person with the most flexibility has the most control. Some people view that as a weakness. Help us why that's not the case.
When you say that they see that as a weakness, it's probably the nurturers. Nurturers are great people, and just to make it full, there are 4, and you probably won't see my green one because I have a green screen behind me, so I'm going to have to hold it in front of me. Right. The green card is the knowledge card. The knowledge, the logic, the universal truths, the data, the facts. Okay, so the knowledge people have the hardest time, what I found in my work over decades, to sell, to be in control. Okay? Being in control is not a bad thing. It's not a weakness. It's actually a good thing when it is a win-win-win situation, when everyone benefits from that. And that's where the nurture, that's why it's so necessary that we have all 4 of these personality types, and we're able to speak to all 4 and not just in our dominant code, because that's really what happens to the nurturer dominant speaker. That's where they kind of sign out. They say, this is not ethical, or it is not in integrity, or whatever, or it's control taking, it's something negative, it's manipulative, and then that's where they check out. It really is not when it is a win-win-win situation. It can only become a win-win-win situation when you understand all 4 codes and you can speak all 4 codes. It's not just one dominant code. Because Mark, really what happens, if you only speak in your dominant code, no matter which one it is, you're leaving out what?
75%. 75%.
And let's add some fuel to the fire if we talk in terms of real estate. If I'm only talking in my dominant code, I'm leaving 75% on the table. But even worse, I'm spoon feeding my competition the other 75%.
Right. And so we just did a survey of JPAR, and we know we have a high orientation, which makes sense because we're salespeople, a high orientation towards A's and N's in the organization. So let's tell them a little bit how they can go to jparcode.com. They can go to jparcode.com and crack their code and get a report on what it means and how to interpret it. And we'll talk a little bit later. They can go to jparvault.com and get the enhanced package. We'll talk about that in a minute. But go to jparcode.com, crack your code, and get the report, and we'd love to get some feedback on that. So,
and Mark, I'm sorry if I may, that's actually a report that you're giving your people for free, because it's a $97 report.
Yes. Yeah, that's pretty amazing.
That's a sweet deal. Yeah, so that's a nice gift.
Let's talk about what you've learned. I mean, there's just so much we could talk about in terms of understanding how success leaves clues and success patterns. You know, all of the folks in the audience that are listening to us today are CEOs of their own independent contractor business. You know, they set their own hours, they set their own behaviors and actions and routines. what have you learned from being a serial entrepreneur in these success patterns and understanding bank code that have worked for you?
Okay, I'll start out, I think that's a great question. I'll start out with what was the biggest pain that I didn't even know I had. When I started my school in 2004, I went through teachers. I have 13 staff members now, and I went from teacher to teacher, and I had a huge turnaround in teachers because remember, I'm a high action, high blueprint, so everything had to go quick, and it had to be exactly my way. Well, what are teachers?
Nurturers.
They're nurturers. They're
Right.
super nurturers. I didn't nurture them at all because I told them exactly what to do, and you better do it like yesterday or else, right? So they were sick. They were scared, S-less of
Right.
me, and I didn't even know, right? When I saw bank, I saw that as the answer to my problem that I had because I didn't even know what I didn't know. I know that sounds so cliche and so, kind of, we've heard that over and over again, but I really didn't know how to, that I had that problem because I thought, why are they not doing it? Aren't we all the same? Aren't we all in the same boat with, contributing to these children? And then I learned about the bank methodology and how I can code my staff and actually then speak their language back. So in terms of the CEOs that you work with, of the independent contractors, it's really not about you. It's about you being flexible and having choice so you can speak the code back of the people that you're mentoring, your clients, the people in your office, your administrative staff, whoever it is. If it is up to you to communicate so it lands with them. You're the messenger, and the message has to land so the receiver is actually able to receive it. If they're not receiving it, they can't do squat, and then your team falls apart, or even worse, your deal falls apart.
You have turnover, so I call it the language of influence. You're speaking the language, not in a manipulative way, but in a way that gets the point across that they can understand your language. So for those that maybe are familiar with DISC, the A, you're a high D. The only time the staff hears well done is when you order a steak, right? And once you understand that the staff you hired were all nurturers, they need to hear that contribution, that more warm and fuzzy, and that didn't come naturally to you, right?
Right. Yeah.
Once you adapted, and once you started speaking their language, what happened?
Oh my gosh. Now I have staff members that have been with me for over a decade now because that's when I realized, oh my goodness, I got to change something, right? Yeah. Now I have an incredible loyal staff, which then in turnaround, I have more loyal parents that are re-enrolling their children to my school because we go through middle school. Mm-hmm. So the re-enrollment conversation is a much easier conversation because they have nothing to worry about because we have a strong, loyal staff.
Yeah. Not only probably the re-enrollment or the renewal, but also the referral of other parents is probably now naturally occurring.
Yeah, because we all know it's harder to get new clients than to keep the existing clients and to get referrals from the existing clients.
Yeah. So let's translate this back to real estate. I know one of our biggest bank vault users is Megan Pelly. And Megan from the San Antonio office came to us and said, once she learned about bank code and then she really got involved in the vault, jparvault.com, she got involved in the vault because she basically lost a client. She's a very experienced agent doing over 85 closings a year. So she's very experienced, very knowledgeable, certainly not new in any stretch of the imagination. She basically got fired from a client because she was speaking her code. And once she learned to flip and to understand the code she needed to speak, her success went even higher.
Yeah,
talk to us a little bit about how this applies not only into real estate, but any sales environment.
Okay. And there was something that just triggered my mind that you mentioned with
Megan. By the client or
Yeah, so you mentioned that a lot of the people that you work with and that are listening here are high actions, high nurturers.
Mm-hmm.
A fun fact is they're both very emotional codes. Blueprint and knowledge, not emotional codes. So when this code comes to this code, it's an immediate clash. So you now knowing that, it's the first part is really the knowing. It's you having enough respect to speak their code and not want them to speak your code. For instance, let's just take Germany. I'm flying to Germany here in a few days. And if I would take you with me, Mark, I would give you a few sentences to say to get around. Ein Bier bitte, eine Brezel bitte, whatever it is, right? One beer, please, a pretzel, please. That's respect. When you go into a different country and you learn some of the ja, nein, please, thank you, ja, bitte, danke, whatever it is, you learn some of those preliminary words or sentences. You do that out of respect. This has nothing to do with manipulation and has everything to do with respect, being respectful towards your client, towards your staff, towards anyone that you have a sales conversation with. Mm-hmm. And that respect comes with awareness. Okay, I need to learn that. I don't have that flexibility and choice yet. And B, the drive to actually go and learn it. So how does it apply to any sales conversation? I speak from a lot of stages, and I start out a lot of my speaking gigs with how many of you are in sales, and I raise my hand, and sometimes half the room raises their hand, and I go, sorry, that was a trick question. You guys are all in sales because you're constantly selling your idea, your thought, your decision, something. You're selling your kids on eating broccoli. Right. You're always in the sales conversation. So I get asked, Brigitta, where would you use bank? Well, I use it everywhere and anywhere, and my children use it everywhere and anywhere, and everyone with a pulse needs to use bank to be more respectful.
So whether it's a personal relationship, a business relationship, any type of relationship, you're using these skills to enhance and make that relationship deeper, richer, more effective for everyone.
Absolutely. If we can build relationships, may it be in real estate, may it be in a school, may it be anywhere else, we lost.
Yeah.
We burn bridges, and then people are not coming back or are not referring us.
Right. And we just published a set of statistics from the NAR annual buyer and seller survey that said the top 3 reasons that consumers search for an agent is, one, their reputation, their perception of trustworthiness and honesty, and their social proof, more or less their referrals and social proof for those kind of things, and then their local market knowledge. So these skills are super important to the consumer in selecting the agent as well. Now, if they want to learn more about this, they can go to jparcode.com, jparcode.com, and for free, you can crack your code and get a little report. And then if you want to learn more about the vault, which is a deeper dive, it's jparvault.com. Brigitta, tell them what they would learn if they went into the vault.
Okay, so when you go into the vault and you learn more about the nurture, about the action, about the blueprint, and about the knowledge, it goes deep. As I said earlier, it's like learning a language. You're really good in one language. You're really good in your dominant code. And you probably don't even know what your dominant code is because you're so in it if you haven't cracked your code yet. But it's really getting on a deeper level, going through the introduction to bank. BA&K stands for Blueprint, Action, Nurturing, and Knowledge, BA&K, going into the fundamentals of each of the values, going into the speed coding. The speed coding is actually a lot of fun, and it takes you away from profiling, and it really gives you a clear overview of what to look for when you enter a room. Say you meet a new client, or you go into a networking event, or you go and meet the mortgage person, whatever it is, that you can start looking for clues, and you can start then asking the correct questions to get an idea of, are they BAN or K first, and what their bank code is. You can, of course, bring your cards and let them crack their code, or send them to get their report. However, the speed coding really gives you the understanding of what are you listening for, so you can speak it back. And then a level deeper is the power scripting. And the power scripting is you writing an email. Say you have, you're writing an email campaign to your entire email list. You want to write it in a rainbow. You want to write it in BANK, and power scripting will teach you that. Very, very powerful. And you can also then, take and just write it in action. You can write an email campaign to all of your action people, or if you're writing one email to one high action person, you want to make sure, especially if you're a knowledge, that you are taking that card. There are 12 values on here, and you hit those values as you're writing that email. And why am I saying, if you're a knowledge, definitely have that card in front of you. What turns a knowledge off turns an action on, and vice versa. That's why you often have, a husband and a wife, and they're opposites. Like my husband, high knowledge, I'm high action. Through this work, we have learned a lot about each other, and how we can meet in the middle and not stand in our own little corners and go and pout and go, you don't understand me. It's not about me understanding you, understanding me. It's me understanding you.
So Brigitta, why this is so powerful and bank is so amazing, and why I love it, and why I connected with Sherry and yourself, is because it's easy to understand, and it's not complex. It's science is complex, but understanding it and applying it, to me, you can apply it in 90 seconds or less. But none of this is new. It goes all the way back to Socrates, right? And
Hippocrates.
In the 80s, I remember we did, they called it personality style awareness. And, we did Myers-Briggs, and we did DISC. And, none of this is really, new knowledge, correct?
No, it's not new. And it's exactly the same, Mark, and I'm glad that you're saying that. It's exactly the same, and Sherry does this. It's exactly the same, only completely different.
Right.
And I hit on what the difference is a few times already. Myers-Briggs, DISC, they all have their place, and they take a longer time to take the assessment. And it's not 90 seconds. It's more like, a few minutes to
hours. It could be minutes or hours. I've taken them all.
Yeah. With the cards, it's quick. It's within 90 seconds or less, because you don't need that long to read the values and then sort them. And DISC, Myers-Briggs, and the other assessments are about, who am I? Understanding oneself. And that's great. You need to understand yourself in order to find your strengths and your weaknesses, so you can actually improve your weaknesses, right? This tells me about you. And that's really what in sales, what in networking, what in business, a lot of people just fall completely flat. Because it's all about me. No, it's not. It's about you.
Yeah. WIIFM. And what's in it for me, right?
What's in it for you? Exactly.
That's the radio station we all listen to, WIIFM. Well, so this has been so fascinating for us. And, as we kind of wrap up this episode, what advice, what of all the things you've learned in the language of influence and success patterns in being a serial entrepreneur, is there one or two key things that you would share with the audience?
Oh my, I have to narrow it down to one or two. You're asking an action.
I know, I'm asking action to be focused.
I think the first thing that I really want to share with everyone is continue to learn. Have that drive, have that fire in your belly to want to continue to learn and make it better than yesterday. Not because you want to compare yourself to others, but because you want to compare yourself to yesterday. And when you can do that and you can continue to learn, you're going to do great. You're going to be more successful than you were yesterday. And
it's you versus you, right? You versus you.
Yeah, exactly. I'm my biggest competition. So what am I going to do today that's going to make me better tomorrow? And the bigger question also is, and that's my number 2, is what are you doing today that's going to make a difference in 90 days out? Because people say all day long, I want to hit my goal this month. Yeah, then the question is not what are you doing today? The question was, what did you do 90 days ago? Mm-hmm. I apologize.
And that's so true in real estate, because in real estate, we do have 90-day cycles. And what we're doing today is going to impact our business 90 days from now. So, I'm glad that you brought that up. But what I'm hearing from you is that you've developed an amazing growth mindset. Now, some of the audience right here is struggling with a fixed mindset, and they can Google that if they need to learn more about the difference between a growth and a fixed mindset. But did it come naturally to you to always be a growth mindset person, or did you have to learn and develop that?
I had to learn and develop that. Mm-hmm. And people are going to come to a point where they say enough. I was highly overweight, and that's when I said enough. And that's when I started getting into motion. And I work with people that say enough. And that's when I get them in motion. What a lot of people do when they're overwhelmed or they're anxious, they stop. And then they do 0. No, continue to go. If it's working out, continue. If you can't run, walk. If you can't walk, crawl. Do something. If you cannot spend an hour in the vault today, spend a half an hour. Spend 20 minutes. Continue to learn. Read a book every day. I read every day. It's part of my growth mindset that I read at least 10 pages every day. Just like I work out every day, just like I have my water that I'm drinking every day. It is something that you decide. It's a decision that you make. It's a commitment to oneself.
And that didn't happen for you until you had a breakdown, it sounds like.
Yeah.
So what we're trying to do is help people to say, hey, you don't have to get to a breakdown. You don't have to have this disaster. You don't have to be 75 pounds overweight or broke and in foreclosure before you get serious about your business.
You know what I call that? I call that learning from others' mistakes. It's so much easier to learn from others' mistakes than from your own. Trust me, I've been there.
Yeah, which is the purpose of this series. And we're now on episodes 66, 67, and each one of them shares something that they've learned in the past. So I am so appreciative of you coming and joining us. Again, we want to encourage the audience to go to jparcode.com and get your report. Check that out. And jparvault.com if you want to take it further. And of course, if you're part of the JPAR network, we have internal training and webinars as we've partnered with Brigitta and the bank code system. So I'm just so honored that you took time to join us today and look forward to a long and prosperous partnership and safe travels to Germany.
Thank you.
I can't do that. I'm not able to do the Spock thing. So that's probably a fixed mindset. I'm sure I could learn.
The rubber bands that you can use,
Yeah, I'll work on that. So thank you so much. And again, we appreciate you. We're grateful for all you're doing to help us improve our mindsets and our sales skills and everything that does. The ripple effect that does to our families and our communities is pretty impactful.
Yes. Yeah. And it starts with a decision in oneself. Thank you for having me on, Mark. I really appreciate it. And anytime anyone has a question, I'd be more than happy to be of service to all of you.
Great. And they can look you up on LinkedIn. And of course, this will be published on social. They'll be able to reach out as well. So again, appreciate it. Safe travels, and we'll talk soon.
Thank you.